A 2-pound brick ought to only be moved via 4 sturdy men at the construction website. John Miller stood off to the facet, scratching his head, absolutely pressured with the aid of what he became seeing. The team strained and grunted, their faces pink as they slightly nudged the small block throughout the floor. What within the world? John muttered. Curious. He bent down, wrapped one hand around the same brick, and lifted it as easily as if it had been a feather. They stared at John in open-mouthed shock. They marveled at his energy. However, John felt just as bewildered as they were. Earlier than long, the reality surfaced. Something strange had happened to the world. Human electricity had mysteriously dwindled by way of nearly 100 instances, but John by myself remained the same. A few days later, John becomes strolling via downtown Chicago while he stumbled upon every other incredible scene. A huge flower pot out of doors, a high upward thrust office changed into so heavy that a crane operator turned into, getting ready to hoist it onto a truck. Status close by turned into Emily Carter, a 9AF3, F374C58E8C9 DCD1, EB10256A5. Young CEO whose company occupied the constructing. John, always useful. Improved. Emily raised an eyebrow and gave a quick snort. Earlier than she should stop him, John crouched, slid his hands underneath the edge, and lifted the pot smooth off the pavement. Intrigued, Emily invited John to her sleek condominium to talk. John shook his head with a modest smile. But whilst his telephone rang, he absent-mindedly picked up the significant flower pot with one hand so he could solution the decision. Emily ought to simply stare, speechless, decided to spend greater time with him. Emily requested John to sign up for her for dinner at an upscale eating place. Interior, they witnessed any other bizarre sight. A group of waiters straining collectively to hold a unmarried dinner plate. On it rested slightly 10 grains of rice. That's the entree? John whispered, astonished. On this strange generation, all and sundry who ought to devour 20 grains of rice was considered a glutton. John certainly grinned. Ought to you bring me a large bowl of rice? He requested the supervisor. Whilst the steaming bowl arrived, John dug in with hearty spoonfuls, the clink of his utensil echoing through the hushed dining room. Later that nighttime, John returned to the development website, full in content material. Beside her stood Michael Grant, a wealthy businessman and expert boxer. Sarah's eyes had been cold as she announced she was leaving John for Michael. John's coronary heart pounded with anger, but he held back. Michael, but advanced with a taunting grin. He reached for a 1-kilogram brick, certainly proceeding to expose off by means of hurling it at John. But no matter all his schooling, Michael couldn't even lift it. Red confronted, he settled for a smaller stone, straining simply to raise its shoulder excessive. Simply then Emily befell to bypass with the aid of catching the whole scene without a second thought. The formidable CEO dropped to one knee right there on the dusty construction lot and proposed to John, wholly convinced she had simply witnessed the strongest man alive.